In reality, only a select few individuals hold the power of influence. Not a pounce over a luxury item never to be owned, but real influence over police, governments, and even clandestine fraternities. My true story is so controversial that I invite you to comment and even question my integrity. Episode 25, Family Office. We were so entangled. I don't know if she heard Mary's comment at first. She soon did. And that moment that had been building for so long and released had ended. We were so intertwined. It was, get a room. Seriously, we'd taken it far too far. We almost prized a pair of us apart. We were interlocked on the dance floor. She was taken. I got a drink, collected my rackets, and left. It was well worth it. But it left me guessing. It had been a really fun afternoon, and playing up a little bit, a few little innuendo, I was in the home club. My home club. For those I brought in, they had so much fun. Easy to sleep. Early to rise. Emails, interest in the home club by Taj Palaces, a portfolio of hotels and resorts, banging on the door to promote them. Thanos Hotels and Resorts also wanted to be an affiliate. Six Senses, the same luxury travel company I'd visited previously at Soneva Fushi in the Maldives with Miss Havisham. £103 million contract. And on the other side of that, tightrope. I was just about half of my brand ambassadors leaving in suspicious circumstances. No excuse, no reason, no nothing, just gone. I'm gone. I'm going to carry on regardless. I'm going to waste any time thinking about these people. If they come at me, I know how to deal with them next time. Disclosure, first thing, all of it. And then we'll have some fun with that little document I hold over the government on their antics at war. They wouldn't want to deal with that. I took a trip to the City of London. I met with Tom, who was a property agent at the Royal Exchange. I was thinking of getting an office in the Royal Exchange on the first floor. And whilst I was waiting for my next meeting at the Ned Hotel, a private club now, I walked around the shops at the Royal Exchange and, chatted with some of the personnel in the shop. One of the shops I entered was Joe Malone, who, you'll know, quality brand, adored by mainly women, but many men as well. As I was chatting to the staff, the manager, Michelle, asked me if I'd like to bring any guests to the store to sample their products. She went on to say that we could have the whole store to ourselves if we wanted. They'd even provide wine and nibbles, and you know what, in all the drama I'd forgotten that word of mouth is still spreading and interest in the home club was going from strength to strength. I agreed, giving thanks for the kind offer, and before I could leave, Michelle took me next door to Lulu Guinness, another high-quality, desirable brand. Michelle explained the home club to the shop manager, who also offered their store and goodies for the club guests. I mean, who wouldn't want to attend these great stores? I thought. We left our conversation that a date would be agreed and plans made. Across the road and into the Ned to meet with a new contact, Yeva Bolzine. Now, she had been working in Ibiza on selling luxury properties and selling top quality rentals in London. She, very pretty woman, blonde, long blonde hair, very nice way about her, very gentle, very sweet. Alright, I need to say more, right? Anyway, we chatted about the home club, her background, and I left it there. I wanted to consider where I was. Do you know what I mean? There's a bit going on. I mean, half my company's team going, I needed to find out what was going on with that. And it only happened immediately after Michael and Russell joined, really. The majority of them. I know Villa and Rick left early, but slightly earlier, a couple of weeks earlier. But anyway, it's all fucking odd, isn't it? I began to realise that Michael and Russell were the common factor before they appeared. I had almost a full house of professionals, but since their arrival, most have left, and no reason. I had another potential affiliate contact, Andrew Slatter, sales rep at Bentley, HRO in Hertfordshire. He wanted to meet me and find out more about the home club. He invited me and my guests to attend the game fair in Hertfordshire as VIPs of Bentley. At this time, I also asked to attend the Guild of Entrepreneurs Awards Committee's inaugural meeting by the organisation's archivist, Neil Partridge. This was to be held at the London Capital Club. Now, upon arrival, I was led away from the room full of guests and guided into a boardroom adjacent to the main room. And there was Neil and Master of the Guild, Kate Jolly, and they all went on to start quizzing me about my conviction. Nicola was aware of my conviction, as were the others. I was just as open and as honest as I'd been on previous occasions. I told them what I knew to date about the evidence that showed I'd been fitted up. They asked a few more questions, and I thought, who do these fucking people think they are to quiz me? They portray an image of the Guild as covering each other's backs, but the reality is that they're stabbing each other whilst others take a drink. The loving cup isn't so fucking loving after all. I was pleased to then hear that they stopped my membership after that conversation. They said it was due to my failure to pay the membership subscription. But bizarrely, they refunded me an overpayment for my membership, which I donated to charity. So clearly I hadn't not paid for my membership. I'd overpaid. I had money in the air account for the next one. Is this Operation Westminster? Can you hear it? Is that words coming? It felt that the reason, or the real reason that caused this episode, was Nicola's probable intention to cause me some damage after I refused to fund the ABS law firm she was launching with Richard. It might have been other reasons, I don't know. Anyway, the Guild of Entrepreneurs and anyone in them, like Daneshill School, have an indefinite ban from my club, or any club's type. By now, Russell was in Silicon Valley. I emailed him asking about his trip, and his reply confirmed that he'd been to see 3 funding groups, including SVB, and would brief me on his return to the UK. This was exciting stuff. I suppose this was why you have people of the calibre of Michael and Russell joining your business, I thought, as the doubts I had about their abilities began to leave me. My one remaining misgiving was that I was unable to get to the bottom of why 5 members of the team had left the home club with no notice, just after being connected to Michael and Russell. I'll never forget the day that Russell sent me an email in response to my request for an update on how the home club was received. In summary, this message read, yes, there was interest. The email is etched in my memory because what happened to me afterwards was at the opposite end of the scale. I received an unexpected email from Henry, who also removed himself from any future personal or business engagement with me or my company. All the home club parties knew about my convictions, so it couldn't have been my connection with that. What was going on? I then received a letter from HMRC claiming that my company had deliberately filed incorrect VAT returns to receive a reimbursement payment from them. In her email, HMRC's caseworker, Tina, stated that my company was a deliberate defaulter and was to be fined a maximum of 70% of the value of the amount my company had claimed. I was fucking flabbergasted. I'd employed Henry and his company as a professional accountant and subsequent experience in accounting to deal with my company's business affairs. And I knew that he had completed the return online from his office computer. Surely there couldn't have been an error. Look, according to HMRC, the Home Club owed HMRC a fine amounting to the sum of 125 grand for incorrect submission of VAT returns. It soon transpired that Henry had intentionally submitted 2 invoices totaling 1.2 million, neither of which held a VAT number from Echo, nor were relevant to my company's banking. Before he resigned his position as accountant, why would Henry do such a thing? Why would he then resign when the home club came under pressure from HMRC? Surely he would have known these invoices had no correlation with the company bank account. Now, was this Henry delivering his vengeance against the oil deal that didn't happen? His connections with Derek through the lodges coming together? Was it all of it? Certainly the tide was turning, and I was hanging on to the life raft of the contract when the ship was sinking to my right. I wrote to Henry, asking him to explain himself. He replied by saying he was instructed to put them in. Now, if Henry's reply was accurate, why would a chartered accountancy firm ignore any reference to a VAT number and then make a claim for VAT and submit incorrect VAT returns? Surely, if he saw an error, he'd mention it, wouldn't he? Even after instruction. Say if I instructed, say, do that, and he said, no, it's fucking wrong. Surely he'd say it's wrong. He wouldn't just do it if believing that he was in fact instructed to do it. He's not provided me with any information or evidence to show that I instructed him to do it. So that suggests he did it off his own back. The question is why. So now we are turning ourselves back into amateur detectives to understand what all this is meaning. It's almost like I'm being built up to have the chair kicked from under me. Time after time after time. Wasting my money, wasting my time, wasting my energy. Can you see it now? Operation Westminster. You started to see what's happening. I sometimes found it easy to forget the powers around me who seemed to be persistently trying, sometimes successfully, to stop me from living a normal life, in a desperate bid to stop my memoirs, including this podcast, because it mentions the most serious miscarriage of justice and corruption and collusion. The British establishment. The establishment don't want this to come out. They've done great things to stop it, and yet here it is. The difficulty they have, well, there are a number of them. Stop it, try, court, disclosure, examination, I choose to bring forward. Let's keep going. The thing is, if I have available funds to hand, it means that I'm able to live normally. I could even perhaps employ a writer to complete a book, a film, or other media that would cause extreme upset to the authorities and otherwise common perceptions about the British legal system and establishment. If the truth were to come out as it is, the appeal courts would be brimming with new cases, especially when looking at the behaviour of the CCRC alone, if the CCR could survive such review status. I heard no more from Russell or Michael following the trip to Silicon Valley and the interest he said he'd received in the home club. I emailed them both throughout July and August and received very little by way of response except to arrange a meeting to discuss matters on the afternoon of the 5th of September 2017. Now, during the quiet period of not hearing from Michael or Russell, I decided to contact my legal connection, Robert Hanna, who was the UK Managing Director of Augusta Ventures. This was a leading litigation funding firm. I asked if he could introduce me to a City of London lawyer that could double-check the validity of the contract I'd signed with Michael and Russell, the £103 million contract. Robert made an introduction, and I met with Mr. Graham Denny, then of EC3 Legal, at his offices in the City of London. I took the contract with me and asked him to give me some advice, which he did by saying, why worry, mate? They're tied in with these personal guarantees. If they fail to perform this contract, then they'll be paying you. Don't worry about that. Now, this gave me some comfort. And I wondered why I was panicking too much about the others who would come through and deliver on the contract. The more I thought about it, the more I thought I'd nothing to worry about. This was the mindset in which I went to the London Capital Club to meet with Michael. Now, as I arrived, I was in luck. He was already in there. I went straight up to the Wren room and sat opposite Michael at the other table. "How are you?" he asked. "I'm better now," I replied. "Oh, why so?" he said in surprise. I'd been concerned about the way in which Russell had ignored my simple request for information about the interest he'd received in the sale of my shares during his trip to Silicon Valley. As I got to the part where I mentioned I'd just visited a lawyer, Michael's face went purple. "Oh no, no, fuck no, what have you done?" he roared, and this reaction piqued my interest. I just sat there allowing him to continue his flow in a situation where I would usually have got up and fucking dragged him across the fucking desk for screaming at me. I'd taken control of the situation. Maybe Silly Boy was back. I think he was. He was commanding this position, relaxed, appearing a little silly but in control. I feigned ignorance in my simple reply, which I'd adopted and utilised previously at 7 Bedford Row. "Oh, Michael, what? Have I done something wrong, Michael? What seems to be the problem with getting the contract checked over by a lawyer, Michael?" He just couldn't contain himself, and I could see he was trying. "Right, that's it. Fuck it," he replied. I am out. So's Russell. We're out. We're not even doing this anymore. I've never been treated this way in the City of London, and no, I'm respected here. And yours is the first contract I've signed for a very long time, as my handshake is usually more than enough," he's screaming. There was no point going any further. His reaction was enough to give me the concern. So I turned the situation right round. "Sorry, Michael, I must apologise for my behaviour. For even, thinking or worrying or pursuing a double check on the word in this contract." He sort of looked at me as if to say, "Fucking got me in you." I said, "Look, let's go downstairs and have a drink. And then I'll take you out for your favourite scotch and maybe one of those cigars that your great-great-grandfather used to smoke." We went off. We had half a bottle of scotch with two of his contacts, took them all for cigars and oysters, and then off to the Sky Garden to finish off the evening. The next day, I had some light relief and went to the game fair along with Paul and Yeva. I wanted to get to know a bit about Paul and his and some other things going on at the time. Now, Yeva is Lithuanian, very attractive, long brown hair and about 5'9" tall. She's very friendly. On our arrival at the game fair, we were welcomed as VIPs of Bentley and Andrew's relaxed greeting. With a smile and open arms, he directed us confidently to a seated area for some refreshments. And whilst I enjoy a drink with the best of them, I wouldn't usually drink champagne at 10 o'clock in the morning. You know what? I thought, why not? With champagne flute in hand, I was guided outside to the lawn for some bacon rolls to accompany the champagne. Now, this might not seem the sort of height of luxury for some people, but for me it was a good start to a wonderful day. I noticed a gentleman standing beside us, and Andrew made the introduction to me. Please meet Will. He's the joint owner of Fielding's Game and Country. Will and his family create the finest game cuisine and dinner parties that you'll ever wish to have, believe me. And Will shook all our hands before leaving us to enjoy the food and beverages so we could chat to other Bentley guests. Within about 5 minutes, Will reappeared, and I heard him say to Yeva, "Will this be okay? It's all I could muster. And had I known you were a vegetarian, I'd have prepared much more." Will had handed Yeva a roll that seemed on the face of it to be the same as the bacon rolls the rest of us were enjoying. What I hadn't realised was that Yeva was a vegetarian. Will had spotted that Yeva didn't take the bacon roll and then took the time to ask if she wanted something else instead. Once he discovered her dietary needs, Will had no more than visit his family's kitchen located a few stands away to personally make Yeva a delicious fried egg roll. And this may also not sound like much, but the fact that Will went out of his way to cook Yeva an egg roll is beside the point. And I was impressed by this level of thought and service, and his desire to make sure that someone was well looked after properly. I was filled with an overwhelming feeling of being in a luxurious environment, because of the way people behaved, not because of the goods around us, although they were very luxurious. I complimented Will on his thoughtfulness, and I felt that this action was standard for Will and his company, as he was unassuming and creative and generous. I'll never forget this moment. I decided that it was this level of standard behaviour that I wanted in the attitudes, hearts and minds of the people that provided services to the home club members. I later discovered that Will wasn't in fact a representative from Bentley's catering company, but he was another VIP guest on the luxury car brand. It just so happened that Will was also showcasing his own company's fine cuisine on an adjacent stand. So what he did was completely genuine. Will took time to support Bentley's guests and then went for an extra mile before he left to attend his own guests. As Will went back to his own stand, he asked, "Would you like to come and try some of our game cuisine at some point later today? I'll have something else prepared especially for you, Eva." Now, I wouldn't usually think of game as something I would choose from a canapé menu, and yet Will had aroused my curiosity. I couldn't get his superior level of service out of my mind, and so I wondered what his food might taste like. We all accepted Will's kind invitation and looked forward to seeing him at around 2:15 in the afternoon. "I look forward to showing you some of our dishes and introducing you to my mother, the chef," he replied. Of course, Will's behaviour was reflecting the fact that he was part of a family business, his company, and a history of a long line of people dedicated to luxurious cuisine. This was reflected in his behaviour, attitude, degree of care and attention to detail. The experience of the day had only just begun. Andrew mentioned that he would be personally taking us to shoot with his friends, the owners of E.J. Churchill, famous gun makers. Andrew then walked his VIP guests around the Bentley models on show, Mulsanne, Continental GT, Flying Spur, etc., showing the game fair visitors brand Bentley and giving everyone the opportunity to enjoy the Bentley experience, sitting in the cars, photo opportunities, and generally allowing the public to have a rare experience with the luxury brand, whether they intended to buy a car or not. We were then called over to shoot. Andrew introduced us to some of his contacts, including Rob Fennick, managing director of E.J. Churchill. Rob's colleague, Victoria, soon came over and introduced me to Stuart Gardner, who was the CEO of Norton Motorbikes, along with his partner, Susie. He personally explained the Norton ethos, a British character of the brand, and his new addition to the Norton range, the V4 Superbike. As Stuart showed off Norton's new creation, a large crowd gathered trying to get close enough to take photos. We left E.J. Churchill, promising to return later. Andrew was still in the full flow and walked us through the crowds, avoiding all the queues, and introduced us to some of the luxurious brands on show. We stopped to chat with the owners of some of these brands and their guests. At one point, Andrew stopped and said, "Oh, I must introduce you to Jade. She's probably very busy, but let's give it a try." We were then introduced to Jade Holland Cooper, owner of the luxurious fashion label Holland Cooper. Yeva was in her element. She tried on most of the garments whilst I chatted with Jade, who took time away from her pack stand as her staff coped with the crowd's seemingly overwhelming desire to purchase her goods. Jade explained her brand, her advertising schedule and recent deal with Harrods department store, and her opinions about the future of luxury clothing brands. Jade was delightful, as were her team. quality of Holland Cooper clothes and the care and attention to detail they gave to customers was resonating with me. I knew that this was the kind of brand I wanted the home club members to experience. With easy access and first look style events, Andrew was asked to follow him off to the shoot. Andrew took the 5 of us down to the clay pigeon shooting area. In turn, we shot around 30 cartridges, superbly guided by the loader, who gave us the best practice tips in a very simple terms. Shooting is addictive. I made a mental note to myself to use the same techniques I use when playing tennis, hand-to-eye coordination. This advice was a huge help, although I only hit 3 targets. The experience was both thrilling and addictive. Yeva, on the other hand, hit most clays. She turned out to be a real sharpshooter. We were then guided back to E.J. Churchill's stand, where I was warmly greeted by a busy barmaid who asked me, "What flavour would you like, sir?" "Flavour?" I replied. "Yeah, gin." I was subjected to a brief overview of many types of flavoured gins made by Warner's distillery. I settled on rhubarb and was guided to the mixer table, which included ginger ale and ice. The drink was absolutely delicious, and I could taste the flavour before it hit my tongue. The smell was also sublime. 2 or 3 shots later, I was fairly comfortable and wanted to stay. We were tasting some of the finest gins I'd ever experienced, made by Warner's 200-year-old barn on Falls Farm in the picturesque village of Harrington, Northamptonshire. The company distills a range of smooth, award-winning gins and a small batch using the farm's natural spring water, grain spirit and some secret homegrown ingredients. Now, we were having a great time. We finally left the E.J. Churchill stand and returned to Bentley, and as we arrived I could hear the faint sound of champagne corks and the ching from crystal flutes before we'd had our own glasses filled with bubbly. We sat down and laughed with the Bentley staff, enjoying a relaxing day to enter the day. I suddenly had a thought, oh no, we all need food. It's 3:30. We made our apologies and raced over to attend Fielding's. As we climbed a few steps into the hut, we were greeted by Will and introduced us to his mum, who was in the background. "I'm so sorry I'll be in. I couldn't help but taking the smells coming from the chef's pans." "Not to worry," Will said. "I've prepared something for you, or even something vegetarian for you, Yeva. And the chef will have it with you in a couple of minutes." A woman came up to join us. "Please meet my mum, Liz," Will continued. "Hello," she said in a softly well-spoken English accent. "A pleasure to meet you, and I hope you enjoy the food today." Will then passed us a large plate, placing it on a table to one side. I was relaxed, intoxicated, having fun, standing with friends, eating fine game cuisine cooked on a portable stove at the game fair. What a perfect day. Even to this day, my brother, who is now well-travelled and knows good food when he eats it, still raves about our experience at the game fair. And that's why I just had to have Fielding's game and country hour events at the home club members. I now had access to more of the finest brands and top-tier clientele wanting to become members of the home club and established contacts of mine. We chatted for a while longer on the Fielding's culinary stand before returning to Bentleys. The whole experience was thoroughly enjoyable. By now, Yeva and I were a little drunk and say getting a bit closer than a business relationship would normally allow. But that's what it is. We were having a kiss and cuddle. That's what it was. After a little fun and frolics, we left for home. Now, I'd been invited by Adele to come to her white party again at her home in Wimbledon Village. And the day of Mario and Adele's white party had arrived. I wanted to have some time to chat with Adele whilst I was there, and so I invited Yeva to be my guest as a ploy to distract all the men in the room. She would have done that with ease, and this would have left me alone with Adele to find out about things stood between us. Yeva accepted without knowing my plan, and the white party in Wimbledon Village began with me meeting Yeva at the Dog and Fox pub. "You look nice," she said. "So do you," I replied, being professional, and, we were reminded of how we were behaving at the game fair, so it was really invisible. We walked along Wimbledon Village and arrived at the corner of the high street in the village by the roundabout and the apartment complex before taking the lift to the penthouse. Yeva was particularly impressed with the place. The same white grand piano stood in the corner. Food was everywhere. Eric and Georgie once more engaged to play music alongside their sax, guitar, which were placed on stands in a safe place to give a consistently good ambience. We were greeted with the customary glass of rosé champagne and ushered onto the terrace that overlooked the skyline of Wimbledon. Before long, Adele bustled over and greeted us. She looked amazing, as always, although she seemed to be in considerable pain and held up a bandaged little finger on her right hand, which she'd cut on a broken glass during a fall earlier that evening when preparing for the party. She should have really gone straight to hospital. She was consistently being asked by her guests if she wanted to be taken to A&E, and yet she refused, only to then stand with me and chat. whilst Yeva commanded a room full of willing males, eager to give her their business cards, 2 of them in some cases. The sun was setting perfectly over Wimbledon, SW19, as the live band began to play. As Adele and I stood watching the sun go down, I joked I was going to bring some tequila tonight. "Oh, stop, please," she said. "I got in so much trouble that night." He didn't even talk to me for the whole week, other than in front of our dinner guests. But I loved it, and I want to do it again. But just the 2 of us next time, as Cinderella will not get home early that night. I fucking looked at her, "All right. It's like that, is it?" She went on, "If you'd have brought a bottle, he would have gone crazy, as he's banned Jimmy and the others from getting any. This flat is a no tequila zone after that night." She then gave me a warm smile and added, "Wait round the corner over there on the terrace. I've got something for you, and I want you to be there when you get it." Now the sun had almost disappeared over the horizon as the soft terrace lights lit the mood. I took a few steps round the terrace, as Adele had asked me to, and to the secluded part of her terrace. I was met by one of her waiting staff, hovering next to a table lit with candles and garnished with rose petals. In the middle were 2 glasses, lemon, salt, and a bottle of tequila. I grinned to myself. Adele swiftly arrived on the scene and said, "Your friend Yeva is so beautiful and charming and making me jealous of you." She then pointed to Mario and said, "Everyone loves her, even him." "Who?" I replied, as a joke, pretending I hadn't noticed before adding, "Look, you've done so much for me and taken a great risk. Just to have a sip of, the forbidden drink. And your finger is so bad. Why don't you let me take you to hospital?" As the party was in full swing, the live band playing, Adele pulled herself closer to me and said, "I wanted to take the risk, as I haven't had so much fun as when I was with you at Emmy's. I actually felt free for a change, as I love to dance, and although you didn't want to, you didn't complain, and just did as you promised. If I went to hospital, I'd have missed you tonight, and not have had this moment with you. Something that I've been thinking of ever since." We both took the salt, then the tequila, and finished by bringing the lemon to our lip before leaning in with a kiss. "What are you 2 up to?" Yeva come in bursting on the scene and round the hidden part of the terrace. We hadn't been able to kiss, as silence was enough of an answer. "Coming in, what we drinking?" she went on, a little tipsy and now bored of her new admirers. The maid quickly cleared the table of the forbidden drink and put an ice bucket in its place containing a fresh bottle of bubbly. "Champagne," Adele replied, looked at me, poured each of us a glass, and then walked over to her guests. Yeva approached me. Now she was openly flirting, although the night was over, pretty much, and it had been a very good party, as they always were. We all said our goodbyes, and with a lingering hug I whispered to Adele, "I've got a surprise for you." Yeva and I took a step forward towards the stairs, and I could hear a voice in the distance saying, "Can't wait," from Adele, which made me giggle. Yeva and I went on to Hemi's, which only served to remind me of Adele and the salsa dancing. As I was quite distant, reminiscing on Adele and our plans for the future, Yeva was just warming up. I was the one this time to call her, making her even keener, as no man would refuse her in the usual circumstances. She was probably good looking. We sat outside at a bus stop, and there was one last kiss before calling a cab to take her home. Adele and I texted each other and would arrange to play tennis at the socials on Wednesdays and weekends, frequently making plans to meet, alone in the sports hall at the club. Each time I would back out or cancel, sometimes only a few hours before the hit was about to take place. I just couldn't go through with it. Conscience has got me. I love the tennis. I love the tennis club. I knew if it went wrong, I'd be out. I'd have to leave. My own self would have to go. Didn't want that. Adele was too much of a temptation. She was playing with me. I did want to go to the sports hall for a game with Adele, but I was fighting my conscience all the way. We'd both been waiting for probably a couple of years to do something other than flirt. It was really that long. It was fucking flirting away, playing away, before anything was going to go down. The flirt and the saucy salsa dance was all we had. I knew that if I cancelled it with her once more, that would be it, be the last chance, and the thought of that wasn't pleasant. The following Monday morning, I spoke with Andrew and thanked him and Bentley for their hospitality at the game fair, and he asked if I'd like to experience the same the following year. He explained that Bentley hadn't really pushed their hospitalities. VIP invitations were just one facet of how the luxury brand had been built. You know what, it's easy to sell a Bentley, just let someone drive it, they'll buy it. I'm telling you, beautiful car. Andrew knew that, of course, everyone does. And when he and I had chatted about me getting a small dog for my daughter, he asked, would you like to take your daughter to see the pups in a new Bentley? Now, we could lend you the car to enjoy for a few days. I mean, never has the term no-brainer been more appropriate, and I agreed with no hesitation. I mean, what a treat. Bentley were pulling out all the stops in their levels of hospitality to care for their clients. I messaged B and told her about picking her up. Although she sounded impressed, she only really wanted to see the cute puppies, not the luxury car. So I collected her from Miss Havisham's at the appointed time. The car that Bentley had loaned me was a £390,000 Bentley Mulsanne Speed. Brand new, insurance, full tank, fill it up again and again and again if you want. The number plate was worth half as much as the car again. It was just a series of numbers, one of their earliest. This was a real toy, but no toy. It was coloured Spectre. I mean, come on, how appropriate. It was like a goldy brown. It sounds horrible. It was a stunning car. I've photos, I'll put them up. I collected B from Miss Havisham at the appointed time and saw my little princess's eyes widen as I opened the back door for her. She got in and said, this is nice. Bentley, is it? Very nice. Tell you what, you collect me from right outside my house. You can collect me from school if you want. The Mulsanne drove exactly how you might imagine. No, it was even better. The interior was sumptuous, the engine powerfully quiet. I mean, I was already hooked. This is beautiful. One of my favourite cars. And I was thoroughly enjoying the kindness shown by Bentley. As B and I travelled to see the little dogs, my daughter played every Bentley gadget, paired her iPhone to the headset, played her Spotify tunes until we arrived at the dogs. Afterwards, B and I went on a long drive to Brighton to look at a house I wanted to buy with the proceeds of the contract and be close to her new school so I could collect her some evenings and bring her home, the real home club. We got stuck in traffic for a while, so I pulled over and she swapped seating positions, opened the rear door, climbed in around the back where she could investigate more buttons. The music volume increased, the blinds went up, the TV, the Wi-Fi were tested. You've just got to get one of these, Daddy, she said. I love this one. It's so comfortable. Will you pick me up from my new school, innit? Of course, Princess, I replied. The car's choked up. As we cruised along the motorway, she told me about some bullies at Roding. The level of bullying there was apparently epidemic. So I dropped her back to Miss Havisham and gave her big hugs and kisses. I told Princess to call me immediately if anything similar began to happen. I returned to the Mulsanne and then onto the showroom, handing it over, reluctantly of course, 4 or 5 days later. As I did, there was a flying spur waiting for me to take straight away and an invitation to meet as special guest of Sir Edward Dashwood's private estate in West Wigan Park to shoot with him and some of his close contacts. It was such a fun day, so addictive, and the people were very welcoming. If not playing tennis, I would choose shooting. I made a mental note to take the sport up once I'd addressed my outstanding issues, as I had potential targets to practice on. I started the fateful date of the 5th of September 2017 by attending the annual breakfast with the past Lord Mayor of the City of London, Dr. Andrew Palmley, at Mansion House to mark City Giving Day. I sat on the front table along with the Lord Mayor and Lawson Muncaster of City AM. I was asked by both the Lord Mayor and the newspaper proprietor how the home club was doing. I explained the potential of the club and I would continue to support the City of London by making more donations once the contract had been paid out. As I explained to the Lord Mayor the level of support I intended to make once I had funds in place, he jumped up his feet, ran up to the rostrum, took the mic and made reference to the promised donation. Lawson, however, sat quietly and continued to eat. I knew he was a lively character as I'd met him previously and been asked by Michael to invite him to join the home club. I left the breakfast event and met with Yeva for coffee at the Ned before we both went straight into the London Capital Club. Yeva waited at the bar and the London Capital Club whilst I went upstairs to the Wren room again and into the meeting. Michael and Russell arrived just as early as me, so we began our agenda a little earlier than planned at about 1:20 p.m. in the afternoon. As we opened the meeting with some initial comments from Michael, his phone rang. And as he looked at the cell caller screen, "Who is it?" Russell asked. Nervously, Michael replied, "It's City AM. I'll speak to them later," he muttered. I quickly returned the conversation of matters at hand regarding the home club. I asked Russell to explain the level of interest in Silicon Valley on the investment and the contract, and how the sale of shares were going, and as he only had a few weeks to deliver the first tranche of £3 million. Not only was there caveats to this contract, there were dates of delivery of these tranches. The first 3 million and the second 100 million, guaranteed. Russell began to look shifty, or extra shifty. He refused to give me any information and announced he was resigning his position of managing director of the home club with immediate effect. Michael then added, we came on board as a pair and we're now going to leave as a pair. The same sentiments and reasons that Russell has just given you apply to me also. Hang on, I said, but what about the contract and the money you both owe to me? There is no contract. And Russell nodded in agreement. At that exact moment the meeting was over, and it was either terminate the room and these two mugs in it. I wondered if this was just a ploy, because I'd already had some warnings of the people leaving the club. Silly boy. Saved his life and walked out of there. The contract repudiated, and these two characters seeing my business plan and its potential future. I went back downstairs, had a drink with the other before leaving for home to consider my next move and what is going to be a legal battle. I decided to start off with a degree of reconciliation by asking both Russell and Michael to provide me with statements as to why they repudiated the contract. Before I could put my plan into effect, I received emails from Jeremy Sutton and the rest of the home club brand investors, all resigning their positions. The only one left, in fact, was Victoria Salem, and she remained for an extra 20 days beyond the meeting. I then decided to meet up with Ria in a coffee shop in Putney to discuss what was going on. I asked her for information as to why she felt the others had left. Ria revealed that she was aware that they had been planning something and were colluding. Fucking not again, I said, and immediately reminded of Tom Cart, Casey and co. previously. It's the same pattern. The same pattern. She then forwarded me an email from Az Hakim, you remember Dr. Az Hakim, who asked her to call him on her mobile when questioned as to why he had left. She then added that she'd tried to get a job with Scotland Yard as an undercover officer, and the home club issues were becoming far too much for her. Fucking hang on a minute. Everyone's leaving, it's all fucking Mirror and Clark and co, and yet she's been asked to join Scotland Yard as an undercover officer whilst with the home club. The world is just fucking louder. It's not so far in the distance now. Shortly after this, I sent my request for the statement from Michael, and Russell, I received an email from their solicitor, Mr. Mark Fallon, CEO of Mr. Finch Solicitors in Rosendale, Lancashire. In his email, he says, quote, I'm writing to you to confirm that I have received instructions to represent the interests of Russell and Scott Dalglish and Michael Buckmaster Brown in respect of correspondence forwarded by you to our clients relating to the home club. Needless to say, please forward all correspondence with me rather than my clients going forwards. Unquote. I sought legal opinion and was advised to make a complaint against Henry Goldstein for his negligence in the Institute of Chartered Accountants. It was a simple point at issue. He had submitted VAT returns that didn't include VAT numbers, nor did they correlate with the company bank account and weren't in any way consistent with the trading of the business. And the ICAEW is the body in which Henry is associated. I thought that they would review my concern and, supported with undeniable evidence, would decide within a reasonable time frame. I was perhaps a bit too optimistic. I'd somehow forgotten about my experience with the CCRC reviewing my cases, including the evidence I presented to them and their behaviour before, during and after my trial. Surely the ICAEW wouldn't be biased in any way, I thought, naively, and allowed the complaint to progress. Whilst giving some latitude to an event I prefer not to join my core complaint, I recalled that my two younger brothers also had serious issues with Henry and MJB accountants at the same time. They made their own independent complaint concurrently based on their own evidence. They also believed that fair and balanced review would take place, but it did not. It's easy to think that there are a series of strategic attacks on my business and those of my family. Although having the evidence to hand on all previous cases, I had a new drama to resolve before I could add any associated concerns. Whilst I could see the connections between the police, the prosecution, the solicitors, the government agencies, and CCRC, HMRC, and ICAEW, I wondered whether I could join Buckmaster Brown, Dalglish, and others to any collusion. Was there a conspiracy going on between these parties as well? Or is this a new issue, an example of a similar scenario repeating itself at random? There are just too many fucking idiots about that kind of thing. Or is this all connected? I needed to take time to carry out more research into this whole set of circumstances. Surely the same thing couldn't happen twice, I thought. On top of the many professionals who'd left my business without good reason, with Michael and Russell being the prime examples on that list, my focus now was to recover my company. The outside world continued to show excitement and expectation about the home club coming to fruition. I needed some hard facts, rather than to add speculation, based on my experiences with dark forces to these series of odd events. Before paranoia took hold of me, I decided to any thoughts about an overall conspiracy, a wide berth, even though I had seen evidence of this collusion before, and on a grand scale. I had all the evidence for the conspiracies I had already mentioned in emails, call transcripts, handwritten notes, exhibits, sworn statements, videos, photos. When making official statements of truth, especially when others might feel like challenging my words, I always seek to put the same level of evidence in place to support my own words. I retain an incredible amount of detail in my mind and in evidence before even a single word on paper or podcast exists, as I haven't written my memoirs. The evidence has written them. I've just put the evidence on paper and verbally. I needed this exact same evidence to deal with this new situation. I knew only too well the overwhelming feeling of where do I start. Always remember that I'm not a lawyer, and so my way of discovering evidence of facts is to begin with an entrepreneurial view towards the administration of documents. Almost like a detective, I begin to build the story, add in the ingredients of luck, extreme levels of determination and doggedness, and trust in my gut feelings for guidance. Uncovering these conspiracies would often, in my experience, be proven, even when the evidence causes surprise or shock. I had the added benefit, of course, of my mother. I now needed my homegrown expert to help me decipher the oddities going on in my life. I knew that this would break her temporarily away from her own research into her ancestry, especially her own family in Northern Ireland. During her early childhood years, my mother pursued her interest in genealogy to add to what little information she knew about her own ancestry. She decided to trace both sides of our family. With my need for her forensic skills, I went to see my mum and asked her to begin some research. I asked her to investigate the names Lord Michael Buckmaster Brown and Russell Dalgleish. As always, my mother dropped everything immediately and said, "I'm on it." A computer screen flashed and refreshed to display the latest genealogy sites, Burke's, Debrett's, peerages, Excel spreadsheets. "You know, I'll find something. I've never been wrong yet," she said. She was right, and I had full confidence in her abilities, research and detection. As I left the room to make us both a coffee, I could see her purchasing a marriage certificate for Buckmaster Brown. There was only 1 week to go until the event at Joe Malone and Lulu Guinness, which was to take place at the Royal Exchange in the City of London. I just arrived at Earl's Court Exhibition Centre to meet with some interior designers and fixture fittings and equipment manufacturers when my phone rang. The call was from Donald Eland, General Manager of Chiltern Valley Winery and Brewery, based in Henley-on-Thames. Fielding's Game and Country had been asked to supply the home club's guests with a fine cuisine after I had been impressed by the genuine top-quality service provided by Will and his family at the game fair, and by the taste of his food, which was different, interesting and delicious. Will had introduced me to Donald, who would accompany Fielding's canapes with fine wines and liqueurs. "Hi, Darren. I'm so sorry, but I have 25 weddings on the go and I'm unable to supply your event at the Royal Exchange." Now, with less than a week to go until the event, I replied, "Don't worry about it, Donald. I'll get someone else." He carried on. "It's not that I can't supply you with the drinks, but on all presentations of our wines, I like to present. Due to the weight of interest and orders, I'm unable to attend." Now, whilst I was very disappointed and thinking of the ban that Chiltern Valley were about to receive, I continued. "Look, Donald," I said, "I'm not going to blame you, but I am going to blame Will, as he was the one who introduced you to me." I ended the call with Chiltern Valley and immediately called Will, telling him about my conversation with Donald. Will could not have been more apologetic. I explained that if he could not find an alternative, then I would cancel Fielding's also to look for a different catering option. Will calmly asked me for the rest of the day to resolve things, and this is exactly what I had expected from him. Yet you can never be sure how people will behave when they're tested. Look, in the right circles, it's well known that the introducer is to blame for any issues that arise from the introduction. Problems come about because people either don't care or don't introduce the people they should, and or they don't have the right calibre of people for making appropriate connections. Will called me back later the same evening. He said, "I've spoken at length with Donald and we go way back. He has a business that has a royal warrant of appointment to Her Majesty the Queen. And as such, Donald must be on site at events held by all new introductions at the very least. He is aware of your contacts and the potential opportunities that await him, and he's truly sorry. We have agreed that I drop my plans for a few days' holiday at Chiltern Distillery to train for those days on the range of wines and spirits, so I am the person to act on Chiltern Valley's behalf as the first introduction at your event." Now, that's how he behaved, and Will received a huge amount of respect from me that day. In addition to what he had shown me previously, he understood how elite introductions worked. It was in him, because every move he was making was from the heart. It was in him. I had my guest list planned. On the list was Maya, a beautiful Swedish model, Kyra, a gorgeous actress and model, Zalika, also a model, Louise Reneuf, a scientist working on cures for cancer at the Marsden Hospital in Chelsea, and a part-time model and actress, 2 women from Bentley, and my potential sister-in-law. Also attending were a haute couture fashion designer called Peter, who had impressed me with his experience at Armani and Dior before having his own atelier in Savile Row, London. An Italian architect who flew in from Venice that afternoon after working on the Doge Palace along with his friend and a fellow Italian, a tech entrepreneur, and my 2 brothers. As I was standing outside Lulu Guinness' store talking with Peter and welcoming my guests, Will placed an unopened bottle of white wine between Peter and I and said, "Donald was truly sorry, and in the hope that he retains the relationship with the home club, he has given me 2 crates of Chiltern's latest creation, even before it has been given to Her Majesty the Queen herself." Now, Donald must be really sorry, I thought. When trying the wine, along with the rest of my guests, it was delicious and a real treat. The evening was full of fun and frolics in the company of fun individuals. The women at the event were led upstairs to Joe Malone's to be pampered. They returned to join the group, grinning from ear to ear before being handed pigeon canapes, scallops and blood orange liqueur which accompanied the delicious white wine. We were all having so much fun, we decided to extend the evening at the Ned Hotel, followed by a private table at the Brasserie, a modern European restaurant and circular bar with a domed light in the former bank building in Lombard Street, the City of London. We all started chatting. I took interest in Louise, who reminded me that she had brought a beautiful red dress exclusively for the event. We exchanged numbers and decided to meet. Louise is very attractive, tall, long blonde hair and feminine, down-to-earth nature. Added to that, she's smart, working on cancer treatments as a biologist before taking time to pursue her interests in acting. I was very keen to meet with her again and told her as much. We planned to meet the following week for coffee in Chelsea, close to her place of work. When meeting up again, I could see she'd been out partying the previous evening, which made her even funnier and cuter in my eyes. Unfortunately, I found out that she'd only just ended a serious relationship. I could see that she needed a friend in that moment rather than another deep relationship, so I had to put any thoughts of dating on hold whilst she recovered from her broken heart. We left and said that we'd contact each other again soon. I put a note in the diary to message her within a week or a month or continue our conversation at lunch. It was a real shame we couldn't take things further. She's lovely. The pressures of what felt like a fierce determination to destroy me and the home club continued. One part of the saga was the persistence of HMRC to pursue me because of Henry's accounting errors, if that's what they were. I appreciate that HMRC are only acting on the information that is in front of them and must allocate penalties accordingly, but the errors and inconsistencies I have encountered when dealing with HMRC are almost unbelievable. I would liaise with Tina at HMRC after reviewing my company's incorrect submissions of VAT returns. HMRC formed their decision based on what seemed to be Echo's claim, in that the home club had broken a contract with him. In an email from Tina at HMRC on the 3rd of October 2017, she wrote, quote, "Apologies for not following up from my email of the 19th of September 2017 sooner. The point you raised in your email of the 9th of September 2017, you have cancelled the contract in respect of Echo Web Development. I referred to your email the 1st of February 2017, where you included correspondence between yourself and Dustin Brabant on the same date, confirming that the invoice had been cancelled. I hope this helps." If there was anything that could brighten the mood, it was a call from Andrew asking if I wanted to take out the new Bentley Bentayga for a week. Now, Andrew had a habit of making no-brainer phone calls, and I took the car, which was so much like the Mulsanne in Bentley quality and style. The Bentayga is often called the Marmite of Bentley luxury fleet of cars, as it's thought not to be as beautiful as their other models. I mean, I don't agree. As I experienced the inner beauty of the car, the outside became ever more attractive. The car must have brought me back some luck, because even though HMRC finally agreed on the truth of my argument, after Tina's previous email stating that the Home Club had broken the contract with Echo, I supplied HMRC with hard evidence to correct their previous decision regarding the deliberate defaulters and the decision that formed the fine in the contract in respect to Echo. On the 10th of October 2017, I received the following email. Dear Darren, I hope you're well. The matter regarding the cancellation of the project in respect of Echo web development, please note that the wording in my letter of the 13th of July 2017, you have cancelled the project in respect of Echo web development, was slightly incorrect. The correct wording should be Echo Web have cancelled this project. Apologies for any inconvenience caused. Now imagine how I might have suffered at the hands of HMRC if they yet again failed to carry out a proper review. HMRC had no idea I had prevented their embarrassment and potential closure from the information I received on account given to me by Alan whilst we were at HME Blunderston. Seriously, HMRC would close if that material ever found its way into the press. As would the British government, as would the legal system, and more. It's that serious. With a little weight off my shoulders and time to play, I began to visit the tennis club more often. I thought more and more about Adele and what excuse I would give this time for not meeting up with her. That I know Prude referred it. I wasn't feeling good about the situation. Every time I saw her at the social tennis evenings, the skirt got shorter and the top tighter. I made yet another excuse and apology before relenting to arrange another plan to meet. On one particular Wednesday evening social tennis, I was guided by Ross, the new tennis coach of the club, to team up with Adele as a doubles partner. I placed my sports bag on a chair between the clay artificial courts and the floodlights lit the courts. I walked over to Adele, noticing that she remained quiet and a little cold, which was out of character for her. I tried to lighten the mood and cheer her up by making a few jokey comments to her, trying to make her laugh. Eventually, I raised a polite smile before she said, I suppose I've got to settle for the moment we shared at my party as our final moment together then, eh? She started walking from the baseline up towards me, ensuring that I either took a bump from her shoulder or moved that her away, looking at me before she went to the back of the court again to collect the balls for serving. I had to come back with something. Oh, so we're playing now, are we? I replied with a smile, squatting down close to the net as she threw the ball up to serve, hoping to recover the situation. I knew this was the last chance I'd get if I wanted something to happen with her. Then she served me a reply, a proverbial ace. Oh, I thought you were a man of honour, doing what you say you'll do. You do have the badge of honour, don't you? Fucking hell, she was on it. Ouch. I suppose this was 15-love on the banter scoreboard. She was already out in front. Now she really was back on form, releasing some pent-up frustration and giving me what I deserve, really, before adding. Men of honour don't make promises they can't see through. And to do it to a woman, well, I really don't know what to say. Fucking hell. It's now 30-love in the banter scoreboard. She's beginning to enjoy this game, her own game. Look, okay, I know I deserve it, and your banter's too good for me. And not only that, I know you're enjoying it far too much. I replied quickly, going on the defensive, and she tried to refrain from smiling, turning her head away. I just about won that point, getting us back somewhere near normal 30-15 to her on the banter scoreboard. Let's make a plan for next week. I threw up a drop shot, and she looked at me and smiled, eyebrow raised inquisitively. Fucking hell, another tight shot. 30-30 was now on the scoreboard, the banter scoreboard, as she almost fell over the net laughing. Now, I needed to get ahead, so I tried the proverbial lob. I just placed my imaginary banter tennis ball in position for her to smash up wherever she wanted to place it. Oh, do you mean you're actually going to turn up this time and not wait for me to spend hours doing my hair, makeup and making myself look nice for you? Fucking 40-30. In her favour. The banter scoreboard. Game on. Is that it? Is that all you've got, Mr. Honour? Patrick Honour? And that was her final shot. Smash, slam down. She won the game. Fucking dummy. She was having a great time at my expense. And I joined her in laughing. Much like the other idiots before. As all I could do was accept the situation. But I wasn't going to have that. I turned around to her. I knew she was still warm. All right. I thought that you wanted that surprise. She looked round, spun round. I suppose that you must be bored of all my promises and, you're not interested in what I might have for you. I'll leave it there. She changed. Her nose began to wrinkle. She walked up to me, placing her right hand on my heart and said, looking up, last chance. Take it or don't take it, because you'll never know what you might have missed. I replied, I always do what I say I'm going to do. I'll see you here at 2 p.m. next Friday in the sports hall. We played out the rest of the set in near silence, as a more serious tone had settled into the artificial clay. The heat of what was potentially to come was clearly on both our minds. Listen in to each episode as I engage you in my personal journey of how a boy growing up on a council estate in Essex would eventually own the most exclusive online private members club in the world.